Now that we've talked a little bit about allergies and how to improve your soaps for your customers and friends and family, let's talk about the cure process of soaps. As I've mentioned before, you need at least 4 to 6 weeks of cure time for your soaps. And why is that? We got to make sure that we neutralize our pH balance, which takes about 4 to 6 weeks. This is going to ensure that you get the best and the most bang for your buck when you create your soaps. And during this 4 to 6 week period, you should probably check on your soaps from at least once a week. And you may notice that your soap may change appearance, texture, size, and color. So what we can do is when we notice these changes, we can mark that down and either change our recipe or just go with it. So over the 4 to 6 week period in which your soap will take to cure, you should probably check on it at least once a week. And in that time period, you may notice that your soap has changed color, texture, smell, or even size. And there's a couple different ways we can remedy these problems. First off, if you notice that your soap has turned brown, a really dark color, don't get worried. That just means that you added too much vanilla into your recipe. And what I mean by using too much vanilla, well, a lot of fragrance oils and extract oils have vanilla in it. That's how you make those oils. You always have the common ingredient, which is vanilla. Even if it's like a strawberry oil or a lemon oil, there is some part of it that has the vanilla in it to create that oil extract. And that just means you've added too much fragrance oil, and that's really okay. It doesn't affect your soap or how well it's going to clean you or anything like that. So you can go ahead and use that just fine. If you don't like the color brown soap, it's not very pretty to look at, really bothers you, I do recommend taking a white bar of soap, maybe you've made, or an unscented soap that you could buy at the store, grate it up, do a melt and pour, and create a brand new soap of a black and white soap. It kind of gives this marbled look, and it's really pretty. And that's a really easy and quick solution. Next up, we're going to talk about the most common problem, well, maybe not a problem to you, we'll go over that in a second, the most common stage of the cure process of soap, gel phasing. What does this mean? If you've ever noticed that your soap may turn kind of iridescent or clear in the center of your soap bar, that means it's going through gel phase. What does that mean? Don't worry. It doesn't mean that your soap is dangerous and you can totally use it. It doesn't affect your soap at all. It's purely aesthetics. And what that means is sometimes the liquid, the water in your soap, has evaporated too quickly when the outside edges has retained that water. And you may get almost like a clear iridescent thing going on in the center. And that just is purely up to you. If you do not like that, then you can go ahead and adjust your recipe, or perhaps where you're storing your soap, you may want to adjust the temperature. Perhaps add more layers of blankets and paper towels on top, or add less, depending on your height and altitude. And this will help you even out your soaps, so you do have more gel phasing if you like that kind of look, or less. You just gotta have to play around with it. So again, just to cut it all short, gel phasing is totally fine and it will not affect your soaps. You can go ahead and use them just fine. It doesn't affect them. It's just purely aesthetics thing. Next up, let's talk about another common aspect of our 4 to 6 week cure process with soaps, soda ash. What does that mean? Well, you may notice down the road when you're checking on your soaps that your soap have a level of almost looks like white salt or some kind of maybe sand-like substance on top. Don't worry. Again, this is just a purely aesthetic thing. It doesn't affect the quality of your soap at all, but it looks really gross. And what you can do when your soap is purely done curing and you're ready to go ahead and just take a knife and just cut off the first layer of the top part, get rid of that soda ash, don't have to worry about it, and your soap after that should be perfectly fine once you get rid of that layer. Next up, let's talk about seizing. Seizing in soap is not cool. It is probably the biggest problem we have with soap making, and it is when the oil and the lye do not mix very well together. It almost comes off like gritty Play-Doh substance. It's a really gross texture, and in fact, there's not much you can do once your batter starts to seize. So I would recommend just going ahead and just throwing it out and starting anew. To prevent seizing, make sure that everything is well mixed, and if you notice that your batter starts to get a little bit more gritty like Play-Doh, as I mentioned before, that may mean that you've added too much fragrance oil, or perhaps your recipe is a little bit off. So go ahead and just try it all over again. It's okay, we all make mistakes, and this is all a learning process. So don't get frustrated. Thanks again for joining me on another little soap informational video. I hope you learned a lot. I know that I did. Today I talked a little bit about tips, tricks, and techniques for sensitive skin and people with redness or irritation, and what to put in their soaps and what not to put in their soaps. We also talked about common mistakes during the cure process in soap making. And I just want to reiterate again, even the best, top, most beautiful soap makers in the world do make a ton of mistakes. When you're working with a brand new recipe, that's okay. Know that you're learning a brand new skill and you're going to make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. It's just a part of making soap making. We technically are doing a chemistry experiment every single time. Sometimes they work out great. Other times, due to factors out of control, whether it be weather or maybe adding just one more drop of fragrance oil, it could throw the whole thing off. And that's not your fault. It's just all about the learning process. And I do highly recommend keeping a journal with all your soap making recipes, what you did, how much you added of each product, and your cure process states. How did it look after week 1? What did it do on week 3? Let me know about it. You can always tweet me, or you can tag me on Instagram with your process of your soap making. I'd love to see what your soap looks like week 1 to week 6. Let me know about it. So go ahead and contact me in the links provided below. We have another fun video coming up, so stay tuned. Hey there, soapers, and welcome to Project 2 of our soap making course. Today in Project 2, we have a fun and easy way to make your dishwashing soap. It's a great way to keep those dishes clean and save money.